What's good, YouTube? And welcome to the house. I gotta get through this market watch a little bit quick, but I do want to stop in with that once a week health update. I am now down over 20 pounds, just 6 pounds left to go on the weight goal. When I would hit 230, even be under my college weight where I had a six-pack and I was ripped. Not so ripped this time. I've been doing just cardio and watching my calories in, calories out, not a dietary channel, nutritionist channel, but I am really enjoying this journey. I'm feeling the effects and people actually have been noticing in my real life, so that feels pretty good. That being said, let's go ahead and get into today's market watch with Engraver of the Mark having a buyout for the supers. Even the mega pack commons are going because vendors like to try to play vendor hot potato with the harder to get commons out of a mega pack. Even though there's first ed original commons over here, you have an upgraded rare out of Genesis Low Impact, which is actually a very good set. The ratios just really suck. But let's talk about the super rare buyout because it's the most flashy in the room. These are actually selling at $5, and as an old school player and duelist, I want to tell you that you're essentially buying anti-Regeki or white hole to counter a dark hole or Regeki, because you're not playing this for its secondary effective. Once per turn during either player's turn, target a face-up card, destroy it during the end phase of next turn. That sounds like those old bad cards that take 5 turns, especially with how modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Is played. But the effect reads first, during either player's turn when the opponent activates a card or effect, by declaring exactly one card name, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, declare one other card name. This is obviously being bought out for the speculation of crossout designator coming to the TCG, and we do think that it's pretty reliable, the spoiler coming from a vendor that is well associated in the community that wouldn't want to heck up his eBay feedback. And with this being that kind of tech choice to counter a specific card, think that you're playing this instead of a generic extender, a draw card that gets you to more extenders. You're playing a card that specifically counters one card in a format. Now, it is funny, it feels good to, haha, your expensive $80 card, I'm gonna counter it with this. Well, let's be real, crossout designator is not Dragoon. It's going to be gone afters and threes, and it will be introduced most likely in a set where you're only seeing around the 1.4 per case. If we go by last year's ratios, we'll see about this year's. Last year there were no shorts in the Megatins, but the ratios were about 1.4 per case on the ultra rares. We'll have to see what they are this year, but you're playing a hard counter to a single card, and I don't think that's the best use. I know Dinnerflex has covered this, Crush Cards has covered this card, but I'm still saying, if you're playing a hard counter over a generic extender, do think about the consistency of that. Access code Talker is being bought out faster than ever. We see it going back to 120. Now this has reached 150 at one point, but we see it going up from there somewhat quickly, already to 130 on the front page, and the sales rate actually going pretty high, haywire, as people are going, access code Talker's missing from the tins. Did you hear? Did you hear? People are pushing this in my streams, especially when I'm recording videos, and it's stupid because access code Talker's missing from the early spoiler, and when you see almost full set list, it's more of a half set list, and we even come down, it's more likely to be in the tins than not. Out of 5 cards, 3 of these will make it in the slot by this guy's math, and Konami can freely make things jump around in different numbers where they do feel like if they necessarily have to. But yeah, access code Talker's not currently missing from the tins, it's missing from the spoiler that is very incomplete. Look at how many empty slots are in this spoiler. That's a lot of empty slots. Crossout designator is also rumored, but again, this entire spoiler is from a reputable seller. A lot of people are backing him that he is legit and that this does seem to be partial spoiler, but rushing out and buying a card just because it's missing from a partial spoiler is actually blowing my mind just a little bit. Also, cards confirmed in the spoiler. Look at this, Nadir Servant down in price. I remember the Copium, it's not going to be in the tins. Oh, they're going to skip the Dogmatica engine, sell it somewhere else as the all-boss structure. Like, oh yeah, all boss is in there too for the naysayers. Weird. It's like the whole kitchen sink usually gets thrown in. Now, some cards obviously could be missing to sell elsewhere, as next year's Megatins are so thirsty for value, ending with Burst of Destiny. But we have Lightning Overdrive, Blazing Dumpster Fire, and Yawn of Majesty. Yikes. So I could see Konami stretching out some of these prints, sure. And we also have Brothers of Legend and Gold series on the horizon for other reprints. Red Eyes Dark Dragoon is tanking in price even faster from Banlist fears, now around $70. And I have not looked up Verte, but I see a $40 tag, which would be down $10. And indeed, it is a lot of people fearful of this engine being hit, and they are bailing right now. How many times have we seen it miss and spike? So if it misses, it spikes. Or you 5-head, you've called it. They're not going to do anything to reprint this expensive card somewhere else, and yeah, I guess it would have been funny if it ended up secret rare in this year's Megatins. That was kind of my call for their reprint, which didn't happen, but it could still get reprinted elsewhere. I don't necessarily know that they're going to deal with it on this FNL list, but if they do, you're making the smart choice to sell, and that's always with Banlist speculation. There's a lot of money to be made by speculating, but you're still gambling when you are doing so. B-Troopers have upcoming support in Burst of Destiny, and I just wanted to point out the ultra rares have continuously and slowly gone up in price from their initial prices, as has B-Trooper Scout Buggy. This could be Plunder 2.0, where the second release is disappointing. Konami obviously doesn't need to sell Burst of Destiny any better than they already have. In fact, a ton of vendors have sold out of their Burst of Destiny early. But when it comes to this deck, I kind of have a feeling that it will turn out even better than it already is, and there's a lot of hope for it, but I could be huffing copium at this point, right? Like, you're still speculating on what Konami will do with the future set, but do note that the ultra rares are going up. These are kind of almost similar to what Plunder ultra rare prices were before they spiked towards 10, but those were also short printed, some of the last short printed before we got changed ratios and Eternity Code, to where now everything is shorter. So keep in mind, these ultra rares are actually harder to get than older ultra rares, but not quite as hard as old short prints. Vampire Sucker got a little bit of a buyout, as vampires got a lot of attention, and I actually think they're better than a lot of people are giving them credit for, but also I think they got bought out a bit preemptively. I think some prices will go up. I think this will be a little rogue-ish, but I don't know that it'll be peaking into top cut. Usually when anything gets support, though, prices go and we did see quantities definitely dip, but I just want to go over why I really like this deck. Its advantage engine's really good, and you're now getting up to 3 normal summons in a turn, because the new Ghost Ogre card allows you a normal summon, and you have another normal summon within this archetype. I also want to go over some cards that have really cheap super rares right now, like Vampire Retainer. If this card's special summoned, you pay 500 and you add a vampire spell and trap from your deck to your hand. Your new Ghost Ogre Foolish Burials this, and then enables you to send a vampire card from your hand or face up on the field to the graveyard to special this card. So essentially, you can Foolish Burial this guy to get another card that allows you to normal summon, which is a continuous spell in the deck, and then you get another normal summon from the graveyard, Ghost Ogre. We also have Domination getting really low quantities for its secret rare printing out of Dark Saviors, as well as the common. I did not know the common was going down in actual quantities. This is their counter trap, so I could see why a lot of people are going for it. Though, when a spell / shop card or monster effect is activated, if it's activated while you control a vampire, negate the activation, and if you do destroy the card, and you also get some life point gain on top of there. Shadow Vampire is one that I kind of glazed over at first. Lithium's been on it. This card reads, when this card is normal summoned, you can special summon a dark vampire monster from your hand or deck, except Shadow Vampire, but if you do, only that monster can attack for the rest of the turn. This card can't be used for Xyz material except for the Xyz summon of a dark monster, though, so do keep that in mind. He's a nifty level, and he only has that restriction on himself, not what he's bringing out. Also, Familiar is similar to Retainer, except this card allows you to go and get a monster by the same kind of effect, bringing itself to the field by sending a vampire. So there's all this self-replacing search advantage. Grace is one of the cards that you do bring out as a level 6 to help you make Beatrice. Fräulein is slower in the deck at this point. I still think it's a really decent option to end up having, and the secret rare is what I would go for before the super rare, but I feel like it ends up being slower than a lot of your other options. Kingdom is also up there, and I want to actually pull up the spell card. I don't know that I have it up, that allows you that double normal summon. I believe believe it's like takeover or something like that, but I want to make sure to include it within this video. Oh, it's domain, not takeover. Vampire's domain has 3 total printings, including OTS 15. Multiple vampire cards are actually in OTS 15, so that's something to actually look around at. Konami kind of knew this was coming, maybe. And the secret rare is going like hotcakes, actually. Wow. Once per turn, you can pay 500 life points during your main phase of this turn. You can normal summon a vampire monster in additional to your normal summon or set. And each time your vampire monster inflicts battle damage, you get to gain the same amount. Really good for the deck. Now, this normal summon, normal summon, normal summon, 3 normals in a turn. Flunderies is doing that on their own without all these extra effects and help that get choked out by hand traps necessarily. And a lot of people are sleeping on Flunderies too because, oh, you just fail or imperm them, they're over. Not necessarily true, but this definitely does get sneezed on by hand traps and crumble a bit more than the average deck, especially with all the searching versus Droll and Lockbird. Consider the negatives, but also the fact that people are going for the nicer versions. The nicer versions are still pretty cheap if you want them. Using that TCG player link in the description down below, costing you nothing extra to support the channel directly for the cards you'd already be buying, but they have competitive versions for most of these cards in a lower rarity, so you do have budget options if you're in the market for them. Also, Zombie World is something I would consider over Kingdom necessarily, because a lot of the decks will still end up using Zombie World to be much better disruption versus people's extra decks like Tri-Brigade and decks like that. I really think that Zombie World is underestimated in the current metagame. Finally, Nordics. The Acer, all that got new supports, and we do see a ton of buyouts. Be aware that new support equal prices go and look around. We do also see some very, very, very low quantities on the synchros. I don't know that the new cards take them to anywhere near that next level, but they are pretty good support, and it's not what I exactly expected. Konami's hitting a lot of legacy updates that are pretty darn cool. Vampires, Nordics, Ghost Tricks. This new set, it feels like somebody's really on the ball of looking through past archetypes and giving super balanced updates that actually do take a deck to the next level, but not necessarily like taking over the metagame level. And one card I would suggest is Golvaig, the Nordic Ascendants. Probably murdered her name, but this enabler Link 1 fairy is freaking and is locked behind a $30 MSRP legendary hero deck, with her that being her only printing. She's still around $1 to $2 at this point, if not cheaper, and you should be able to get that. So if you're playing this deck at all, and you're a fan of the deck, why do you not have this card already? And you should be getting it. Thanks for watching today's Market Watch. Sorry I had to go a bit fast, but I did cram a lot of info in there and try to go over why I really like Vampires and their support update, but I don't think they'll be taking over. Just like I don't think Live Twins will be taking over. It becomes a really cool meta option for Live Twins, probably much more so than Vampires, but Rogue keeps getting ridiculous prices for what it is lately. Those knee-jerk reactions and buyouts, we even do see some of them with Vampires. So just take a note, sometimes things are overinflated with that aspect of, oh, it's going to spike again when it gets here, and then I make my sales. People notice these cycles and repetitions, so try to notice where those cycles are, and buy between them rather than into them, mayhaps. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed this conversation, and I've got to go. See you guys. I didn't hit stop record. Smile.